Hello everyone, in this video we'll learn how to apply loops in Python programming. And before we continue with loops, we have to understand one function that is called as, let me open Notepad here. Yes, that function is called as range function. Okay. So this understanding of this function should be clear to you before we understand loops. Okay, so how does range function work? It generates a sequence, okay, sequence of numbers. So in Python the sequence is called as list. Okay, so we'll have a separate video on list in the upcoming lectures, you will see. So for example, we can write range, and inside the bracket you have to specify three things. The first is the start value, then you have to put the comma, then the stop value, and then step. Okay, familiar type of structure we have seen with string slicing in the previous videos, so I don't think this should be a problem for you. Now start value is the value or a number from which you want to start generating the sequence. It can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 10, or it can be whatever number you want. And the stop value is the number at which you want to stop. And as what we saw in case of slicing, here also the stop value is not included in the output. And of course with step parameter you are already familiar. It decides whether to go in forward direction or we have to go in backward direction. Also step parameter allows us to skip numbers while generating a sequence. So let's see it with the help of an example here. I'll use range. Let the start value be 1, let the stop value be 10, and let the step parameter be 1. So it shows range 1, 10. Okay, so the thing is, it has created a range between 1 and 10, but it is not showing that range. And to show that range, you have to typecast this function into a list. Okay, so you will come to know more about list later on, so don't worry about it as of now. So list, and inside the bracket you can write range 1, 10, 1. So when you press enter, you can clearly see that the range function we have written here has generated this sequence, and this sequence is appearing in the form of a list. Okay, so it is not always that you use this list typecasting while using range function, but since we are just checking what range is going to be generated, we have used list typecasting here. Okay, so in the in a program where you are using range function, you might not be needing this list typecasting. So we'll come to that in the later part of this video. So to understand this range function here, you can say it has started generating the range from 1. So 1 is the starting number and 10 is the stop value, which is of course not included here. So to what value it is stopping? It is 9, which is one place before 10. So it is just same as what you saw in slicing, that the stop value is not included in the output, and this slice process there stopped at stop value -1, and here again it is stopping at 10 minus 1, that is at 9. And since we have specified the step value 1, it is not skipping any number in between this sequence. We are going one by one. That's what it means. Let's write the same example without writing the step parameter. Should it work? Yes. So again, it is the same case that the step parameter is an optional parameter. Fine. By default, it is taken as 1 here. So you can play around with this range function to understand this in a better way. Like what if I specify 2 here? So what type of range or what type of list should I be getting? Take a look at this output. Starting from 1, stopping at 9, that's because of start and stop parameters. And here you have written 2. That means while going from 1 to 10, or while generating a sequence, a range, you are going to skip one number in between. That's what this 2 means. Okay, it's the same as again what we saw with slicing. So we have 1, which is a starting value. Number 2 is not going to come here because it is skipped. 3 is coming here, 4 is skipped, 5, 6 is skipped, then 7, and then ultimately we have 9. So can we use the range function to display a sequence in reverse order? Let's see. I'll write 10 here, I'll write 1 here. And what about step parameter? Do I have to write anything here? Of course I do, because we are going in the backward direction here. If you don't write anything here, by default it is going to be taken as 1, like this. Okay, so in that case it's not going to generate any sequence. So again, the reason is same as what we saw in string slicing, and that is by writing 10 here and by writing 1 here, you are telling the system to go to backward direction, that is from 10 to 1, and by writing 1 here, you are telling it to go in forward direction. Okay, that is 10 onwards. So this is not the case. You can either go in forward or you can go in backward direction. So the effect of this sequencing is cancelled here. It's not going to display anything. So it's the same case as what we saw with slicing. So no difference at all here. So if you want to go backwards, you have to write, you must write a negative value here in the step parameter, like -1. So by writing -1, you're telling the system to go in backward direction, that's point 1, and point 2 is you're telling the system not to skip any number in between. So when you press enter key, just check the output. The start value is 10. We are going in backward direction, 10, 9, 8, 7 and so on, and it is stopping at 2. Why? Because again the stop value 1 is not going to be included in the output. It is going to stop one place before 1 in the sequencing. Okay, so this is how you go to backward direction. Let's try one more thing. Can you write only one parameter inside range function? Let's say 10 in this example. Should it still work? Check out the sequencing. It has generated a sequence from 0 to 9. So here you are telling the system to generate 10 numbers. Okay, or in simple words you can say that this 10 here is treated as a stop value. Remember guys, when you write only one number inside range function, it might seem to you that it's going to be treated as a start value, but this is not the case with range function. Okay, so just remember, it is treated as a stop value when you write only one thing inside, one number inside. Okay, so here 10 is treated as a stop value. So the sequencing is going to start from which number? So that start number is not specified. So it is going to be starting from 0 by default. And starting from 0, it is going to stop at 10. And since 10 is a stop value, 10 is not going to be included in the output. Fine. So that's why it generates sequencing from 0 to 9. It is stopping at 9. That is not including the stop value 10. Second thing is, I have not specified the step parameter either. So by default it is 1, that is we are going in forward direction and we are not skipping any number in between. So I hope this is clear to you. Okay. So what about we write 10, 1. Should this be working? No again, because when you put a comma in between, this time this 10 is treated as a start value and this 1 is treated as a stop value. Okay, so here you are telling the system that you want to go to backward direction. This is how it is treated, and since the step parameter has the value 1 by default, okay, it assumes that you are going in forward direction. So backward direction and forward direction simply cancelled, hence you are not going to get anything here. So that's it for range function. I hope the concept is clear to you. So let's now discuss loops. Okay, so I have made a flowchart here, as you can see, in which you can see the working of a loop. So in simple words, when we are talking about loops in Python, we can simply understand that there are situations where you want some code to be executed number of times repeatedly. Okay, for example, I want to display a message hello 10 times on screen. So in normal situation, you might think it as you can write print statement 10 times. Okay, but that is not efficient programming, since you are writing the same statement again and again. So Python provides you a better way of doing it, through which you can write only fewer lines of code, and that code can be executed number of times as per your wish. Okay, so let's first understand how loop actually works from this diagram. So this is a presentation where we are trying to display hello message 10 times on screen. So a loop works like this. Your program starts from this point, start, it goes here. Here I have written I is equal to 1. So I is just a variable which is holding the value 1 right now. Then we go on, and here we are checking a condition. Okay, we are asking whether the value of I is less than or equal to 10 or not. So since this is a condition, there are two possibilities. Either this condition is true or false. So if this condition is true, it goes to this direction, it prints a hello message on screen once, and then it goes on to this block, and here I have written I is equal to I plus 1, which means I am changing the value of I. So I, which was 1 earlier, now it has become 2. So with this value 2, it goes back to this track and it comes back to the condition. Okay, one more time. After updating I, it follows this track and comes back all the way to the beginning of the condition. Okay, so the condition has to be checked again since we are here in the program. Okay, so the condition is being checked again, but for what value of I? 2, because it was updated here from 1 to 2. So is 2 less than 10? Yes. So it goes here again, it prints the hello message second time on screen, it goes on, and this time I becomes 3. With this value 3, we come back to the beginning of this condition, and the condition is checked again for the value 3 this time. So for 3 also the condition is true. We follow this track, I becomes 4, we come back with value 4. For 4 it is true, we go here again, and this goes on and on. As soon as I becomes 10, then also the condition is true, okay, because it is less than or equal to 10. So for the value 10, it goes inside this track again. It prints hello message 10th time on screen, okay. Then I becomes 11, and when we go back to the beginning again, this time we are going back with the value 11. So for 11 the condition is false, hence it follows this track this time, and it goes directly to stop. That is, your program is terminated. So this is how the loop actually works. You have written this hello message here in a way that it is printed 10 times, and this, printing hello message 10 times is being controlled by the variable I. So we say I is the loop controlling variable here. In any loop there has to be a variable which controls the loop. There has to be something that makes sure that the loop executes certain number of times. Now let's do one thing. Let's remove this I is equal to I plus 1 statement from here, and let's see how it runs now. So let's start from the beginning. The program starts here. I is equal to 1. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. Hello is printed. Nothing happens here. So it comes back to the beginning of the condition. But with what value of I? It is 1 only. So for 1 it is checked again. 1 is less than 10. It goes here, prints hello, comes here, nothing happens, goes back, and here again it is checked for the value 1. So I hope you have understood the problem in this execution, that I is always 1, so it's never been updated. So that's why updating the value of the variable which controls the loop is essential for the loop to execute. Otherwise what happens is this message hello in this example is going to be printed infinite times. The loop will never terminate. Okay, so to understand this concept from the beginning, you should say there are 3 things important in proper execution of a loop. The first thing is called as initialization, as you can see here. Initialization means giving a start value to a variable which is supposed to control the loop. The second thing is the condition. The condition decides whether the entry inside the loop should be allowed or not. So if the condition is true, we go inside the loop and we do whatever we want, and then if the condition is false, we are not going to enter. The third thing is this is called update statement. So the variable which is controlling the loop must be updated every time we go back to the beginning to recheck the condition, or simply every time we go back to the beginning of loop. Okay, the condition should check the updated value, the changed value. Otherwise the loop goes in infinite loop situation, as what we saw just now. So this is basically how a loop works in a program. So now we will see the for loop. Okay, so the for loop in a Python program is written as for is a keyword here. You write a variable name here, and let me do one thing. Let me close this window. I would rather type it in WordPad. Fine. So how do you write the syntax? For variable name in. Okay, you remember in is a membership operator which checks for the presence of a value in a given sequence. Okay, so we'll come back to it afterwards. First let's underline this variable name. Okay, we specify any variable name here. It can be A, B, C, P, Q, R, whatever you have, you can write here. Then what comes after in? Mostly you write range function. Okay, so we have already discussed range function, or you can write any collection or any collection object. Fine. So what is a collection object? Okay, of course you put a colon sign here. Fine. So what is a collection object? A collection object in Python is an object which stores multiple values in it, which simply means anything which has more than one values stored inside it. Okay, for example, we have seen string. Now string is a collection. String is a collection of multiple characters, many characters. That's why we can say string is a collection object. Similarly, we will study lists in the upcoming video. So list is also a collection object, so that can also be written here. Another example is called as array. Okay, so we'll study array also in the upcoming videos, so that can also be written here. Another collection object is called series, or you know, a data frame. All these are collection objects about which you will come to know in the later parts of this Python series. So for now you just have to concentrate on this range function. Okay, so this is how the main line or the first line of the for loop looks like. Then of course you indent your code so that it can be considered as if it is inside this for loop. Okay, and what you write here is statements, and that's it for the syntax. So these are the statements that you want to execute number of times, and how many times, it depends on this for loop structure. So let's write a program and see if it works. Let me load idle, and here I'm going to go to script mod and type the code here. So the first example I'm going to take here is printing hello message 10 times on screen. So let's begin with the loop. For I, I'm taking I as a variable which is going to control my loop. Okay, so for I, what do you write next? In, and then here you write the function range, and since range is a function, you will use these brackets, and as per the syntax of range, you can write three things here: start, stop, and step. I want this loop to be executed 10 times. That's all I want right now. So I can simply write 0, 10, 1, where I'm starting from 0, I'm stopping at 9, not 10. Okay, remember this is stop value. It's not going to be included in the output. And I want to go in forward direction without skipping any number. So that is specified by this step parameter. So you can write this, or you can simply write this. Both will have same meaning. So again, this 10 is considered here by default as a stop value. So the start value taken here by default is going to be 0. Okay, so 0 to 10, that's what it means. So 10 is a stop value, it is not going to be included. So 0 to 9, this is what sequencing we are going to have here. That is, it is going to generate 10 numbers. Ultimately, these 10 numbers generated here will work as a reference for this I variable, which means if you have 10 numbers here, the loop is going to execute 10 times, where this variable I will have the values 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. It goes on till 9. Okay, so that is exactly what you want here. So the first value here for the variable I is going to be 0, and for that value 0, it is going to go inside the loop, and here you type whatever you want. So I simply want to print a hello message in this case, so I'll write hello, and just remember to write this statement which is coming inside the loop at this indentation level. Okay, after pressing a tab key, do not write it here, otherwise it will not be considered as if it is inside the loop. So that's what it is. So now let's try and run this program and see what we get in the output. So let's save it first. Desktop test. The extension will be taken automatically, and now we can run this program. So as you can see, this hello message printed how many times? 10 times. So let's discuss the working of this loop one more time. When the loop starts, it starts with what value of I? 0, because of this range function. Okay, the range function is written here in that way that it gives the start value as 0 to this variable I. So with this value 0, we go inside the loop, we print hello, then we come back to the beginning of the loop, and just before we come back, the value of I is automatically updated. Okay, and it is updated in what ways? As per this range function again. So the updated value of I, or the next value of I, is automatically taken as 1 from 0. Okay, so now with value 1, it goes inside, it prints hello, then we come back again with the value 2 for the variable I, then it goes on and on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So as soon as this range is complete, the loop is also complete, you can say. Okay, so this is how we get this statement executed 10 times in our program. So what is the advantage of a loop? We have written only 2 lines of code here, and yet we are able to get something executed number of times. Okay, so is there any other way of doing the same thing, getting the same output? Can you manipulate the range function? The answer is yes, because in this example you just want this loop to execute 10 times. So you can write it in this way also. Like what? You can write 10 here, you can write 0 here, and you can write -1 here. You have to write -1 here. So what it says, start from 10, go to backward direction like towards 0. So 10 to 0, and do not skip any number while going from 10 to 0, and you're going backwards, so you have written it as a negative value. So since 0 is a stop value, it is not going to be included, so it will stop at what value? 1. So 10 to 1, is it 10 times? The answer is yes. So let's save the program and run it again, and see, you get the same output here. What is the reason for this? The loop is still executing 10 times, but the values which are coming in the variable I one by one are different from the previous program. So let's check that also. Let me undo everything. We're coming back to the previous loop structure. That's what it was. So now it is executing 10 times again, but starting from 0, stopping at 9. So we'll just save it again, and let me do one correction here. I'm removing this hello and I'm printing I here. So I've written print I. That means what? The value of I is going to be printed on the screen. So let's save it and run it. Observe the output. The first value of I was 0, next was 1, next was 2, and it goes on 10 times. And this is the reason, because the loop executed 10 times here. So since I am printing the value of I here, it is giving us this output. And in the previous program I was printing a message, so this message is going to be printed 10 times. Fine, it's that simple to understand. So you can use this variable I in your code which is inside the loop, or you can simply leave it like this and you can do the other stuff like printing a message on screen in this particular example. Okay, let's take one more example where we are printing, say for example, first 10 natural numbers. Okay, so that should be very simple if you have understood this concept. So what should be the start value? 1. And what should be the stop value? I have to write 11 here because I want it to stop at 10. And of course the step is by default taken as 1. I don't want to print this hello here. In fact, I want to print the value of I. Why have I written I here? Because in variable I, the values are coming as 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. So the first value from this range function is coming as 1. This value 1 is going to be stored in I, and that 1 is going to be printed here first time. And when the second time we come back, and when this statement is printed second time, it is 2, then 3, then 4, and it goes till 10, and as soon as I becomes 11, the loop is terminated. So let's see if we get 10 natural numbers printed on screen. As you can see, we get the desired output. Can you print these 10 numbers in reverse order? It should be very easy if you know the concept now. So what should be my start value here? 10, comma, and I want it to be stopped at 1, so I have to write 0 here, and you must write step parameter as -1 here. So let's run this program. And see, it is now executing in reverse order. So if you know range function, you can manipulate the execution of loop as per your wish. Okay, so this is how for loop works with range function. Let's take one more example where we are printing table of a given number by using a loop. Can we do it? Let's first try and understand the logic which is going to be used here. So how do you print table of a number? So for example, table of 2 is what I want to print. So you do it like this, and this goes on till 2 multiplied by 10. So this is something which we all have already studied in our childhood. Okay, so this is how we learned all those tables. So you call it as 2 ones are 2, 2 twos are 4, and so on. So the same logic you have to use in this program. Okay, so remember, there is a number of which you want to print the table. That is the first thing. So for every calculation or for every step, the number remains constant. Okay, it remains 2 all the time. And the next thing is, there has to be something with which you are multiplying the number. That something has to be 1 first of all, then it has to be 2, then 3, and so on. So that something can be taken from loop, and you can store the number in a separate variable. So you can simply multiply the number with the value of loop controlling variable inside a loop, and that way you can get 2 into 1, 2 into 2, 2 into 3, and so on. Okay, because the value of loop controlling variable is going to change after every time the loop is executed. So this is the logic of printing table of a number. So let's write a program for this. Let's again go to script mode, and let's take a number first from user. So I have to take it as integer, and I have to use input function. Here I am writing enter any number. Fine. Now I have to print this table of this number n. So I'm going to do it by using for loop here. So for, let the loop controlling variable be I. In this case, I have to write in here the membership operator, and again I'm going to use the range function here. So what is my range as per this logic I had just explained? So the start value of the loop should be 1. So let it be 1, and the stop value should be 10. So let it be 11. Okay, and of course you can write step parameter, or you can skip that. So what's happening here? The start value of this I is going to be 1, because the range function is going to give it a value 1 as the starting value. Fine. Then when we come back, the next value of I will be 2, then 3, then 4, and so on. And of course the last value generated by this range function will be 10. So this is the loop structure. Now all we need to print the multiplication. So n is the number which remains constant. So for example, I entered 2 as n, so I'll write n here. So this will be replaced by this number 2, 3, 4, or whatever it is, and I have to multiply it with, first of all, with 1, then 2, then 3. So in which variable I have 1, 2, 3, and so on? I. So if n is 5, for example, it is going to be multiplied by 1, because I is 1 in the starting, at the start of the loop. Then when we go back, and then when this print is executed again, by that time I will become 2. So 5 into 2, then 5 into 3, and so on. So let's run this program now. Okay, so let me enter 15 here. So as you can see, the table of 15 is printed here. Okay, if you come back to the program, if you run it again, this time say 13, so I have the table of 13 printed here. So I hope this logic of printing table of a number is clear to you. So likewise, you can use loops for your purpose, and you can make complex programs as per your need. Okay, so our purpose in this video was just to understand how loop actually works. So in the coming sessions, we will be using this for loop extensively to serve our purpose. Thank you so much for watching. Do like, comment and share the video if you have liked the content, and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.